Hi everyone, this is Ryan Hoyme, aka Massage Nerd, and today I have Erik Dalton. It's a very special holiday gift. Hi Eric.
Hi, how you doing, Ryan?
Yeah. So some people want to know a little bit about you, because some people just started hearing about you, but even though you've been around for many years and stuff, so what's your claim to fame?
First of all, I just recognize that you pronounced your last name Homie.
Yep, Hoyme. Yep.
I mean, it's not Homeboy. It's Homie.
No.
I've always said home, so it's home.
Yep.
Okay, you Minnesota guys, you come up with pronunciations up there.
Yep.
Right, so anyway, what was that question again?
Yeah. So how did you get started in the massage field? And yeah.
I was a drummer, and I had a lot of scapular pain. And I had seen Ida Rolf in '72 at a short demo at Esalen Institute. I was playing drums at the time, but I finally ran across a Rolfer in San Diego. I was working with the Health Institute of San Diego teaching nutrition, and I'd had a lot of trouble with this, what I thought were muscle problems, rhomboid problems, from hitting that snare drum 2 and 4 in the studio day after day. And nobody had been able to fix me, and they told me about a Rolfer in Del Mar, California. So I started going over to him, Victor Gebrin. Now, that was about 77, something like that, 76, I guess that was. And he fixed me in about 3 sessions, and, that gets your attention. But, I never wanted to be in, I never thought about touching bodies other than my girlfriends at the time. But anyway, I got very interested in it. I started really getting interested in Rolfing. And so at that time, you had to take, I think, 500 hours of massage training to become a Rolfer. So I went to San Diego to school in massage, and then went on to the Rolf Institute in '82, and been at it ever since, Just loved it. And then I broke my neck in '89, got into bone work. Osteopathy, particularly got real interested in manipulative osteopathy, and they were allowing PTs to take those courses up with Philip Greenman up at Michigan State. And I had tried to be in physical therapy school, but here at the University of Oklahoma was pretty boring at the time. There was no hands-on, but it did allow me to take the courses up there, and so for 10 years I studied with Greenman and all those greats up there at Michigan State College of Osteopathic Medicine, those postgraduate workshops. So I came back and tried to figure out a way to take that spinal biomechanical work and put it together with deep tissue work, the structural stuff I'd learned from Rolfing. And that's where I came up with myo, meaning the myofascial type tissues, and skeletal, myoskeletal alignment techniques, because it was kind of based on an alignment model right now. Most things right now are based on functional, structural and functional model, which is what we're going to talk about a little while in my new book. But that's kind of how it got started, and you get a passion for something, particularly if you have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Like me, and and so I've just been obsessed with body work ever since. I love it. I've had a full-time practice for 32 years. I saw 8 people a day this last week, and I don't know if I'm any good for that anymore, though. Because these old elbows are wearing out.
So you're semi-retired then, right? Or
I've never retired from my full-time bodywork practice. But I am retired from teaching 3-day workshops. All those workshops are gone. I may come back someday and want to do them, but right now I have no interest in the travel. I've traveled as a musician for 15 years and 15 years teaching workshops, and I really have no interest in doing that. I just want to continue hanging out on Facebook and wasting time talking to guys like you on Facebook. That stuff, I don't know. I love Facebook, it's fun. But anyway, got that house in Costa Rica where my wife and I are trying to figure out how to move most of the stuff over there and still be able to maintain a practice and everything. So that's our goal. Keep writing more books, so that's it.
Are you going to eventually just move there full time then to Costa Rica? Or?
I would really like to. I mean, it would be, that's my dream, is to move on our property over there. We got 21-acre gated community. We have 1 acre of that, and we grow all of our own food. It's a self-sustaining community in the mountains overlooking the Pacific Ocean to the west through the mountains, and then, to the west and then to the south, both through mountain passes. So it's spectacular over there. 80 degrees every day and 60 at night. And what am I doing in Oklahoma? 23 degrees out here today.
Yeah, it's about the same here in Minnesota too.
But we got this. That's why I'm here, right here. See that?
Yep.
Oklahoma City Thunder. They're going all the way. NBA champions this year. They play the first game with Orlando this week. Where's my hat? No, what happened to my hat? Here it is. I got my Santa Claus hat on here. Brought it to.
Wow. Cool.
My Oklahoma City Thunder Santa Claus hat. I'm gonna wear it to the game Sunday afternoon. Anyway, what else is up?
So, how did you get involved in this book then? So, when did you start it? And
Dynamic Body. 3 years ago, I had an idea to, since I knew it was going to be probably my last big project, to try together a lot of my friends. Some of them have been just kind of working in the trenches for years and years and haven't, hadn't published a lot. But I just admire them so much for what they did do, and then of course a lot of them are very popular, and most of your audience will recognize those people. But just try to get them all different points of view, looking at human function and structure, which is the title of the book actually is Dynamic Body, Exploring Form, Expanding Function. So that functional movement freight train that's moving through the manual therapy community right now is a very important thing that therapists should integrate, should be able to look for weak links using some functional movement assessments and things like that. And so I'm just trying to bring a bunch of points of view together, and I had no idea that it would be, like herding kittens, as they say, but most of the authors were very, very easy to deal with. All of them were easy to deal with. They're all great people, but it's just that they're anal retentive also, like me, and so it was a little bit, perfectionist type thing. But I think we got a good product out of it. I'm happy, and I'm just happy to have that 3-year project over with. It was very time consuming, and my graphic designer here, Barbara Cardokas, who's in here, the room here with me, worked with me 7 days a week for most of that time, putting this thing together. And then, of course, all the Freedom from Pain Institute staff was great, and all my teaching assistants, Kim Miller and all of them. Paul Kelly is teaching for me. But we were glad to get it together, and we were really happy with the finished product. And it's just like, I guess, having a baby. You forget the pain after a while, and later on you want to have another one. But I hope I don't get to that point. I hope I never forget the pain.
Yep.
My wife will never forget the pain. I know that.
And then Donna asked, would this book be a good for somebody that's been in the spa world and want to learn more about therapeutic massage?
Well, there's a little bit of something in it for everybody. There James Waslowski and Art Riggs and people like that who we start the book out with a chapter by Art Riggs. He's you guys have read his stuff, and Massage and Body Work. Of course, he has those wonderful DVDs out, the deep tissue DVDs, and he's been teaching at the San Francisco School of Massage for many, many years, 20 years or so. And so I started it out with a chapter called Refine Your Touch by him, and that really gets into the most important thing in all of body work, in my opinion, and what I see and the biggest problem in body work in my workshops. You can know all the theory, you can think you understand all the theory, and you can talk about all the research, but when the push comes to shove, the most important thing in body work is how you touch. It takes years and years to learn how to touch, how restrictive barriers, how to meet the restrictive barrier, and either wait for it to do something or make it go a little bit where you want it to go, and creating length-strength balance, which is what you have to do. In some cases, some muscles need restoration of contractibility, and some musculofascial tissues need restoration of extensibility, need to lengthen them. So in the spa world, you're in a set program, and you go in and do a set routine, massage routine, but you need to throw some deep tissue work in there. But you really have to kind of know some of the theory behind it. But Art Riggs's Refine Your Touch is a great way to start that. And then, of course, Wasilowski's chapter on tendinosis, which most spa people are going to run into. People with tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, plantar fasciitis, stuff like that. He gives an excellent protocol on defining tendinosis and separating it from tendinitises that we commonly see and how to treat them differently.
So with Art Riggs, you've known him a while then, right?
I've known Art for a long time. He's an old-time rolfer too, and a great piano player too, by the way. But his chapter, I started it with that chapter because, like I say, I think that focusing on touch, learning how to touch, use your body, using your body. Some people, I used to have people come in and say, when I come to you, it feels like you're, when I go to this other therapist in town, and they feel like they're working on me, and when I come to you, you feel like you're working in me. And and I thought about that for a long time ago. I don't know what they're talking about, but you get to when you're teaching, you get to see it in action. The first day of a workshop, I'll notice people, and I'll look at the audience, and I'm thinking, man, the technique is bad. I mean, this is not a really refined group. Day 2, all of a sudden they look better. By day 3 even, they look so much better because the whole time we're focusing on coming from the ground, getting your center of gravity low, sumo wrestle position, locking in your lumbar lordosis, bracing against your body in sometimes, but that's the key thing, is really learning how to use your body. I've seen some of your videos. You have very good body mechanics in some of the YouTube videos that you have up there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Huh?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Judith Aston, I met her for the first time at the World Massage Festival this summer and stuff like that, and she has so much energy.
Is that amazing?
Yeah.
She really makes me mad. She pisses me off. She's just good. She just emailed me yesterday. She said, "Well, I hear you're teaching such and such, and I'm teaching up in Seattle, so I'm thinking about leaving early and flying down that night to catch you." I'm going, God, you're an animal. I mean, she was legendary when I was growing up through the Rolf Institute. She was, I think she was head of the, UCLA dance department way back in the 60s. I was back there in the 60s too, going to college too. So, but anyway, she was in a car wreck and got hooked up with Ida Rolf. Ida Rolf immediately saw something in her that she needed, and what she needed was to train her. She couldn't get her exactly what I was talking about before. She could not get her Rolfers, the early Rolfers she was training, to use her body weight correctly. So she wanted Judith to come in and teach them how to functionally move their bodies so that they would be more efficient and better body workers. And as it turned out, it evolved into a whole school that is kind of unknown, really. I mean, it's not well recognized in our community, and that is the Rolf movement school. It was kind of back at the time of Moshe Feldenkrais and some of those things. Moshe and Ida Rolf were best friends, and all this functional movement of today, this stuff has been done for years and years and years. These people have been talking about functional movement for years and years. We just have better science to back a lot of what Stuart McGill and Gray Cook and Craig Levinson and Michael Boyles and a bunch of these guys are finding now. But this has been, but movement has been on a hot track among some people for a long time, particularly the old Milton Traeger and Feldenkrais people, and the Rolf movement people, and that's what Judith Aston developed for the Rolf Institute. For 7 to 10 years, she did nothing but train Rolfers to go out and train after they did their structural work, to train them how to move, train them how to sit, train them how to get up from a chair, train them how to functionally activate their core. And that's the stuff that she puts in her wonderful chapter, in her Aston Kinetics chapter here. And she's got about a 40-page chapter. I think it's some of the nicest work that she's done. We spent a lot of time with Judith on this, and I didn't ever meet her till the 2007 Fascial Congress at Harvard. and we immediately hit it off. And I knew that I wanted her, but I knew she was busy. So she was one of the very first people that I contacted to ask her if she would contribute, and I was grateful to have her.
Yep. And the titles of these chapters, I love them. This what it says: John Wayne, Marilyn Monroe, and Goldilocks.
Love that. This chapter is great. Matter of fact, Erik Brown, you know him from
Yep.
now all that crazy group up there in Canada, all those Canadians. Nutcases, something's wrong. Too much cold weather up there for those guys.
Yeah.
Erik is just he's so creative. It's unbelievable. He wrote the foreword for the book, but what are we talking about? The chapter titles.
Yep.
And he posted a thing on his Bodywork Biz. Trying to find it in here, but it was he used Till's chapter, that one you're talking about, Goldilocks.
Yep.
And Marilyn Monroe, and that Marilyn Monroe walk, how some people walk with their shoulders and some people walk with moving more of their hips. It's the shortest chapter in the book, and it's very, very to the point and very entertaining and fun. Here it is, right here. Let me show you this real quick. See if you can see this. This is John Wayne walking, picking up his hip with his quadratus lumborum. He's not using his abductors when he is on his stance leg. He doesn't hip hike his other hip using his abductors and his abductors. He walks with his shoulders. He pulls himself through with his shoulders. Whereas you see over here Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, I think it is. No, it's Jane Russell. I'm sorry. And Marilyn Monroe is a hip gal, and I explained. I told this story, and he used it in the book here. I used to hang out with Peter Lawford and the old Rat Pack guy and his son Chris Lawford. And Peter told me a story one night about Marilyn Monroe and how she got that walk by cutting off an inch off one of her high heels and walking on it for a while till her hip started to displace out on to one side, and then putting another heel on and then cutting off the other one until she got that Mae West type walk. So instead of that contralateral back and forth of the ilium, the ilia as you walk, she walks side to side. So every time she steps on her left foot, her hip side shifts and drops over that left short leg. And it's a good thing she died when she did, because she'd have a very dysfunctional body right now and wouldn't have been in very good shape. So Till gets into all that, and it's just a brilliant chapter. So glad to have that one in there.
And somebody in the chat asked, sometimes my hands hurt after a long day and have found ice works to soothe them. But have you had a similar experience with ice and stuff? Does it help you, or?
I've never used ice before, but if anything that is a nerve involved is going to calm down the cutaneous and skin and fascial receptors, and then if you put ice on and with slight mobilization, then you start to affect the articular receptors or the joint receptors, and now they say that it can calm it down somewhat like biofreeze calms down the receptors, but I've got a part of my chapter in here on human silly putty. Talks about about ice versus heat. We call it meat versus rice, and it's an old term. Rice is the term we used to use. But I'm not really big on ice for some things, particularly ligament damage, where there is no bleed out, but the ligaments have the fibers have torn, because inflammation is something that we do not want to block necessarily. We only want to block it in acute injuries where there's bleed out, where you've got to control the blood. But otherwise, ice can be a very, very destructive thing. It closes off a lot of the vascular supply, and inflammation is not a synonym for infection. Inflammation, histamines, prostaglandins, bradykinins, potassium ions, serotonin, all that stuff those waste products have a certain thing to do, like histamines dilate the arterial walls to help get more of the dirty proteins out from the injury and get the new fresh stuff back in. And you start cooling it, and you start closing down that supply to these fairly non-vascular tissues. So you're going to have a lot. You go icing all your ligament problems and a lot of your tendon problems, and you're going to make your person worse.
Okay.
But as far as icing like that after if your hands are hurting like that after a session, probably not a problem. If it works for you, I'd do it.
Yep. And then Donna asked, where's the best place to buy your book?
The best place to buy my book is on my website, www.erikdalton.com, DALTON.com, erikdalton.com. That's the best place to buy it. And we've got a special running, 15% off special running till the end of this month, the 31st. So it's $87.95, and then if I could do math, I could figure out what it would cost with 15% off, but I didn't take calculus, so I don't understand what 15% off $87.95 is. And that's not my job. I got people to do that for me. No, that's a good way, and it's really, we put 3 years and a ton of money into this thing, and we really want to sell a lot of them. Oh yeah, you got to put that code in, DB15 when you check out. Okay. DB is in dumb butt or dynamic body 15. If you put that code in, no spaces between them, then you get 15% off. Also, my whole collection, the whole Dalton library, we're that and the dynamic body both, which is included in that. That's all 15% off this month only through the 31st of this month. Yeah, I say $400 on that one, the big one.
And somebody asked me the other day, is it going to be available online as an ebook at all, or?
Someday that probably will happen. It'll depend on the quality. If we don't have to, I know Amazon's really getting really good, and Kindle's getting really good with this stuff, and we may do that first, and then we have a lot of plans for promoting this book and for in different different formats. But right now, I just want to appreciate having something in my hand. I'm a book person. I've got books. Look around every office and every place in my house here. Every office I have my favorite books that are all worn out, and I treasure them. I like to just be able to see them and remember them and love them. But if you love ebooks, we'll probably have it out there if enough people want them.
And then somebody in the chat asks, is the book in any stores that they can see the contents at all, or?
Any stores? Well, it'll be on Amazon. It'll be on Amazon, and we're also going to show what do you call it? Thumb through or open to these pages.
Look inside.
Look inside. We're going to have a look inside where you can thumb through and look at all look at the pages inside and see what you're getting. But it's. It's common. Some people think Coach Keats or Patrick Ward or somebody got on me for saying that it'd be a good coffee table book. But it's that kind of book. It's the kind of book that you pick up, a reference book that you just kind of read a chapter and hear. And of course, those guys are kind of like I am. They want to read it from front to back. But it's good for anybody is interested in manual therapy and wants to see the views of a lot of other people, to pick it up, because it's some of it is the future of where manual therapy is going, and that is a lot of it, that marriage with functional movement and cognitive therapy. Of course, with all this great brain research going on, we really have to constantly consider that aspect of it, and so we've got some cognitive stuff in there too, but there's a lot of just basic techniques. We have like my bicycle chapter here. I got talking about the biomechanics of cycling, because it's easy to explain things to people if it's something that they can recognize, some kind of bicycling thing. But at the end of the chapter, we give some actual techniques here that I'm doing, working on people, and explain what they are. And then we give some functional movement training, home retraining exercises, some suggestions for home retraining exercises, which Paul Kelly and Nick Kress and Amanda and Kristen did for us. So we have a lot of stuff like that. We have a lot of technique things in here, and both functional and structural. And you know, it's very James Wozlowski's chapter. He has some very very beautiful things in that chapter too.
And what I love about your book too, there's tons of pictures, and massage therapists in general are more visual. They need to see things. And
I agree.
yeah.
Visual. Well, Barb's the graphic guru here on that, but yeah, I don't know. I find that that body workers have a tendency to be very, very visually oriented in our workshops. That's what we stress. We've always, been very, very I don't know, cognizant of getting the best video where people can actually see the dissection. They can actually see the movement going through the body. Watch the body kinesiology of the muscles. Joe Muscolino and a bunch of those guys talk about so well. Watching the body in movement, seeing what's firing, seeing firing order patterns, seeing how muscles are stressed, and how altered firing order patterns cause motor dysfunction. That we learn. We learn to live with these dysfunctional patterns, and so we got to identify the dysfunctional patterns, find the key links, the weak links, and get to the weak link and start fixing the body from that point.
And then Gil Hadley, reconsidering the fuzz. I love his fuzz speech.
Isn't that great?
Yep.
I think it's gone viral. I think that's gone viral on YouTube. And
yep.
We have, by the way, listen, if you get a chance, if you haven't seen this yet, go to Erik Dalton, E-R-I-K Dalton on YouTube, and then just type in beside it, dynamic body, and watch that video, that 20-minute trailer for the book that we put together. Barb and I put this together. It's a little bit about everybody's got Tom Myers doing a great thing on his anatomy trains in there. It's got Jerry Hesh, who's a sacroiliac joint expert, showing sacral torsions and how to deal with these sacral torsions. Of course, great Craig Levinson is one of my idols, talking about all the functional movement stuff he's doing with all these guys, and Aaron Mattis, whom everybody knows. And we talked about Robert Schleight, all the fascial guys that are going to be there at the Vancouver Fascial Congress. They're all in it. Adjo Zorn and Kai, who they'll be at the Fascial Congress too. And let's see who else would be very recognizable. We already talked about Judith Aston, but yeah, there's something in there for everybody. But check that fuzz out by Gil Hadley. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and for many years he had this big beard and stuff like that, and when he shaved it, he looks like a little kid now.
Oh, he's gone through a lot of transitions.
Yep.
Yeah, we took a picture of him shot with Tom Myers and separated it out, separated the pictures out so that we could. Because I like pictures of both of them, so they're pictures that they're individual pictures, haven't been seen by anybody. Well, here's Gil Hadley, for those of you who aren't familiar with Gil. He's also a rolfer, but how he got into dissection is instead of using the scalpel, he'd go through the initial layers with the scalpel, but then he would always move with his fingers, his hands, and see what layers by touch, what layers were sticking together, and the fuzz is a term he uses. Pretty interesting stuff on visceral adhesions. He's talking about adhesions that we feel and trying to help us understand what we're feeling when we're releasing some of the tissues. We have a bunch of theories on things called thixotrophy, turning a gel to a sole, that deep tissue release that we feel, and then in here, Robert Schleight talks about another possibility, which is mechanoreceptors, which I'm fond of. All the different interstitial receptors and all the different kinds of receptors in fascia, and how that may be what we're feeling. it's all theory. We have no idea right now. There's so much theory, and it's very, very hard to test some of this stuff. So we've got a lot of theory in this book, but these are some of the pioneers that a lot of them are going to be getting it right, and it's going to be kind of what's happening next.
Yep. And is it okay if I add somebody in the Skype really quick?
I don't know. Who is it?
Scott.
Hey, I knew that. Come on in, Scott.
Okay, let me add him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Scott Dartnell.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Hi. We just lost visual for a little bit, but we can still hear both of you, okay?
Hi, Scott. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Ryan, how you doing? Hi. We just lost visual for a little bit, but we can still hear both.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just had to move my Skype around because I was listening to the interview and I was having two things going on at the same time.
You Canadians know how to multitask, don't you?
Listen, my wife says men can't multitask, but every once in a while I prove her wrong. How you doing, Eric?
Huh?
I said, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
You look well.
Huh?
You look well.
Oh yeah, I am. I got all fixed up. I had my hairdresser and makeup lady come in today, and I also got a pedicure. And no, not really. I actually ran through the park this morning. Okay, go on. What's up?
Well, I'm glad. Thanks, Ryan, for putting me on. Can you still hear me, Ryan?
Yep.
Well, we're just coming on to make a special announcement here. Everybody know we were having a contest for our mystery presenter for the American Massage Conference, and he's sitting right in front of me via Skype, Mr. Erik Dalton.
Yes.
Brings him out of retirement. We're very excited.
Yep. Only thing I'm doing this year, teaching the American Massage Conference, and that's all we have planned this year. And we just kind of threw that together, and I sent him over the what did I send you? The workshop description this morning. Did you get that up on your site yet?
I did. If you click on Mystery Presenter, it'll give you the description, and there's a picture of the Mr. Handsome Erik Dalton up there. So it's all good.
Good. Yeah. Well, I just threw that together. I have to go develop a workshop around all the crap I said on there. That's how you get creative. That's how creativity exists. You have to, you get in on a timeline for something, and you throw in a bunch of stuff. This would be fun. This would be fun. And then you go, oh crap! Now I've got to create a whole workshop around this crap that I made up.
Exactly.
It'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. I just on the phone with James Wozlowski and Franny, his wife, night before last. They had just gotten their book, received their book, and were calling to say how much they enjoyed it. And I broke the news to him that we were going to be teaching together because we haven't seen each other in a while. And so he's going to be teaching on Saturday, all day Sunday, and then I'm going to be all day Friday, the 20th of April, right?
That's right. On Friday, April 20th, 2012, you're leading the conference off. You're starting. I think we're starting off on the right note. So we're very excited to have you with us.
I'm excited to be there too. I really like the format of your conference, and I like how you guys are setting it up, and the fact that you sold out all that booth space so quickly is an indication to me that a lot of people are interested.
Well, it was very exciting. We had a lot of people that we couldn't accommodate for booth space, and people say, well, it's a good thing that you sold out, but we'll just look forward next year. We'll be a little bit bigger and be able to bring more people in, and the whole concept is to expose therapists to more and more every year, and just show them how big our industry is and how exciting it is and how many options they have. That's what really excites me.
What I was interested in is the blending, kind of like the book, kind of like my dynamic body book. You guys are doing the same thing. You're trying to bring all these modalities together. I see you have chiropractors that are getting CE credit for coming to the convention, and acupuncturists and things like that. So it's a multi-modality conference. So we'll have different initials after their names in different conferences. So it'll be fun. Plus that, I see that you have some 1 hour. Ryan and I were talking about your 1 hour and 3 hour workshops that run concurrently with the full day workshops that James and I are going to be teaching. Right?
There's some 1 hour classes. There's quite a few different presenters. The 1 hours are free. It's included with your $40 registration. And there's just a lot of there's just so much different variety for therapists, whether it's business or you're looking at ethics, or you're looking at marketing, online marketing, looking at techniques. I think we've got most of the bases covered. We're always looking at improving though.
Yeah, like you got Whitney and
Whitney Lowe and James, of course yourself, and
a bunch of the old timers coming in there too. That's great to see, and it'll be a lot of fun just hanging out with all those guys. You rarely ever get to have all that melding and meeting, particularly since I haven't been doing conventions in so long. It's great to be able to come back and hang out with some of my old friends. So I'm looking forward to it. Where is it in San Diego? I lived out there and I couldn't quite figure out where it is.
well, we're in Mission Valley. We're at the Town and Country. So right in, just it's 5 minutes from the airport, it's 5 minutes from the beach. It's really centrally placed. I think people will find it quite easy to navigate. We're 5 minutes from the San Diego Zoo and SeaWorld. It's the oldest and largest family-owned resort in Southern California, and the people that own it and work there are absolutely delightful, and that's really what caught my attention. Was that I met with the catering manager that had worked at the conference center for 40 years. So it's a good group. It's kind of a family operation, kind of like the way we run our business. So, and I also forgot too that we also have Benny Bond that's going to be joining us there too. So we have so many great people: Tina Allen and Dubas and Caitlin. Now I'm just trying to remember everybody's name. All these of course, our buddy David Kent will be there too. So
yeah.
And David's such a mainstay for us. People don't always know how long David's been around and what a great presenter he is, and what a solid guy. And of course, we'll have Felicia Brown, and we have some new presenters. What I'm interested in is that there's going to be a number of chiropractors that are going to be attending your class, Eric, and there's going to be some chiropractor acupuncturists that'll be attending your class, and vice versa with some of the other presenters. And I think it'll be exciting for them to have an opportunity to meet these people from different professions and look at what we do. Because let's face it, physiotherapists, chiropractors, other therapists are going back to hands-on therapy, which massage therapists have always done, which is exciting.
That's right. That's good. We get them in our workshops too. We get PTs, personal trainers. A lot of personal trainers are interested in incorporating hands-on work too, and that's a great combo. That's a very enthusiastic group, a big, huge group right now, and very enthusiastic about both structural and functional body work.
Well, for sure. I don't want to tie up too much of the time. I did want to announce though that we did have a winner, a person that guessed who our mystery presenter was going to be. And they're actually going to win all expenses paid trip to the 2013 American Massage Conference, which will be happening in Atlanta in May 2013, and then in San Diego in September 2013. So they have their choice. And our winner is Drew Freeman from the Boston Body Worker.
Hey, that's funny. I can't believe Drew got it. Drew just
we had a lot of people guess, but a lot of the people that guessed hadn't registered yet, and a lot of the people we had, it was funny how many different people gave me a lot of ideas of, there are so many great therapists out there, so I just added them to our list for the future. So we're very excited. So congratulations, Drew, and again, Eric, we're really honored to have you as part of the conference, and thanks to my buddy Ryan for let me interrupt his show to announce it today.
No,
Thank you,
anytime.
tell Melanie and all the gang up there hi for me, okay?
I will. Actually, I was just talking to her for a little while. I think she's going to either her brothers or mom's in BC for Christmas, and Eric is going. He's going to Northern Ontario, where his parents are from, North Bay, for Christmas. And my partners with the American Massage Conference, Robin, Lorna, Monica, and myself are getting together tonight for a Christmas party. And of course, our friend Angie, she's taking the week off with her family, Joe and Olivia. So we'll be giving everybody a call. So thank you again, Eric. Greatly appreciate it.
Me too. I appreciate you too, Scott. Thanks.
Have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Happy New Year.
All righty.
Cheers.
What's happening, Ryan? You still there? Did you
Yep.
fall asleep?
Yep. Okay, just need your, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call you back really quick, okay? So I can get
Call me back?
Yeah, so I can get your video back on.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Up there? Okay. Hey, there we are.
Okay, we're back. So did it take some convincing to get you back into the circuit a little bit, or
Pardon me?
did it take some convincing to get you back in the circuit of teaching and stuff?
Really
Or?
did. I really was, was really just not interested in. I just wanted to give it a break, teaching a break for a while, and focus on finishing a couple of home study courses and the distant learning thing. And I want to promote the book. And but after I started talking to Scott and Melanie and some of those people, and saw the way that they're laying this thing out, I really was attracted to doing it. Because they really focus on education. When I go to a convention, I really, I'm interested in learning something I can bring back to put into action, to put right back into my practice on Monday morning. I'm an in the trenches body worker, and when I teach or when I go to a convention, I want to get that. I don't care about hearing about the politics of the business or who's mad at who. What I'm interested in is furthering my skill set. And so I learn from everybody. You learn from everybody. You go to workshops as a teacher. And that's a good thing about teaching, that is you do learn a lot in workshops. This is let's see what my workshop. My workshop description is called Dalton's Favorite Techniques for Necks, Pecs, Low Backs, and Lats. Spend the day with Erik and the Dalton gang. We'll be discussing hot off the press fascial findings from the Vancouver Congress and teaching some cool routines for mobilizing the neck, stabilizing the shoulder girdle, and freeing up the rib cage. In the afternoon session, we'll perform functional assessments from the new dynamic body book that'll help track down weak links responsible for low back pain, sacroiliac and pelvic problems, hip capsule adhesions, OAAA compensations, functional scoliosis, and rotator cuff impingement. So this is the only time to catch Erik Dalton and his fabulous TAs in 2012, so don't miss out on this 70% hands-on multimedia presentation. So anyway, that's my plug for that workshop, and I hope to see a lot of you in there, because it's the only one that I'm going to be doing, and so we're going to really try to make it special for everybody.
And then Laura Allen says, Erik will be teaching when...
I don't want to hit anything, Laura Allen. She sends me, did you see that post on Facebook she just sent?
Yep.
She said, we're old as dirt.
Yep.
And then I said, no, maybe topsoil. She goes, well, how about fertilizer?
Yeah, the comment she's...
going. The conversations always degrade when Laura's name comes up. They always start degrading somehow.
Yeah, the comment says, Erik will be teaching when you even have to roll him in on a gurney. So...
I knew it, see? What I mean?
Yep.
What a great talent she is, though. Well, our common bond is music. I mean, I've never played with Laura, but I've heard her play and sing. She's an extremely talented person, and hopefully someday I'll be able to play some drums with her. And so yeah.
Yep. Phone. And then Tim in chat asks, I'm excited yet I'm cautiously concerned about rushing forth with fascial fitness concepts into practice. What do you think of that?
Fascial fitness is, I think, is fascinating. No, I love it. It's just if you could take if you just take some of the simple concepts. Tom Myers, of course, has some of the beautiful concepts on the anatomy train lines and how to train those lines both functionally and how to create extensibility, tightness. I use examples like this with Tiger Woods, how he can be hit a ball 425 yards and still only have 35 hip rotation, 35 degrees of hip rotation, 110 degrees of shoulder rotation, and then how I got a pro golfer in my to take pictures, and then we drew all the fascial lines in here, and this is how you train, and this is how you strengthen those lines. And fascial fitness, as far as the way Robert Schleip and Devo Mueller and Tom Myers are describing fascial fitness, and some people have called it functional fitness, but it's learning the way the body absorbs shock. They're saying, the eccentric contraction of muscles, how they absorb shock during the gait cycle. There shouldn't be much energy used at all because of a lot of the people we see in our sports therapy thing, they're having gastroc pulls, plantar fasciitis. That's a result of the fascial system somewhere along that fascial line, going from the metatarsals all the way down up through the gastrocs and up through the pelvis and everything. That can be fixated, restricted, adhesive, anywhere along that line. And just to go in and work on the plantar fascia isn't going to do any good. So it's very practical stuff, I think, to understand those basic concepts and apply them. Looking at the whole body, looking for the weak link. The hips, for instance, take the anterior hip capsule or the hip capsule, iliofemoral, ischiofemoral ligaments, and the hip capsule and the labrum underneath. They like to glue down together, particularly the anterior capsule in a flexion-addicted society where we're sitting all the time and those capsules start to get sticky. You guys know that. You get your people on the table and you start doing that stretching where you're testing the ability of the hip capsule to get 20 degrees of hip extension. Your males don't have that extension, and that's why we're getting so many hip replacements. Well, what happens? It's not necessarily just that hip capsule that's a problem. When you have no mobility, when you lose mobility in the three cardinal planes, any of the three cardinal planes of the hip joint, then that strain has to go up to the SI joints and into the low back. So now, we realize now through work of Drake Cook and Green, Professor McGill and some of those people that the low back loves and craves stability. It craves stability. The little multifidus rotatories, intertransverse area, elevator costalis, all those muscles down in there in the lamina groove, they are meant really for stabilization. And they're not really meant for movement. And we have to, once we start, we have a hip capsule that's fixated. We have to put, with each step, you're putting too much excessive anterior tilt into the pelvis, too much lumbosacral angle into the sacrum, causing too much ligament overstretching of the ligaments in the low back, particularly the supraspinatus ligament, the posterior longitudinal ligament, and iliolumbar ligaments for that matter. And so you start getting that strain pattern through there, and people just go in and beat the crap out of the back, get the elbow in the back, and loosen it all up, and what do? Make them worse. You got a client forever because they keep coming back to you until they finally realize you're never fixing them. But you've got to create stability in that low back. You've got to do your training. Give them the home retraining exercises with TheraBands or with TRXs or whatever. With a good personal trainer. But you've got to create mobility in that hip capsule. That weak link very commonly is in the hips, particularly in your golfers. So and your cyclists. That weak link is in the anterior hip capsule very commonly.
And it's nice that Thomas Myers' introduction to anatomy trains too, so it's going to tie everything together. And
yeah. Well, I put those chapters close together, and I didn't know if I wanted to because the fascial fitness. Actually, Robert Schleip has two chapters in the book. One of them is his just overview of the research that he's done on fascia, and then the second one is with his, I think it's his wife, I think Devo's his wife. Is that his wife? We're not positive about that. He never answers that question when I ask him. But but she's lovely, and she's a continuum, a movement teacher in Europe, and travels all over Europe and teaches. And they kind of first started developing that fascial fitness stuff. And I don't know if you guys saw YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook with Tom Myers and Robert Schleip last week, I think it was. They taught in Sydney together, and they were rolling around on the floor together. You know, they're doing all this fascial fitness, demonstrating these people. They look like they had about 10 too many vinos coming off and falling down the middle of class or something. But that's Tom and Devo and Robert had put together a beautiful system, I think, for training the musculofascial system and understanding body movement better. And I think it helps all therapists. I don't care what kind of therapy you're doing. I think it'll help all body work movement therapists.
And then with James Oswalski treating tendinosis conditions too, so getting specific things too, so it's so nice.
Exactly, specific conditions too. And he looks up the kinetic chain, you know, he's looking around, he's not just going to the extensor carpi, radialis brevis and trying to treat the cross-fiber friction, that tendon there. He's looking for the weak link all the way through the shoulder girdle. Remember the 3 lines, or is it 2 lines that go down through the arms that Tom Myers so eloquently has drawn out. Goes through all of those, and then of course all your retraining exercises, your strengthening exercises to try to find the weak, the muscles that need restoration of contractibility or tonified.
And then stabilization, the core and beyond.
That's Aline Newton.
Yeah.
I really was very attracted to Aline through the Rolf Institute for many years. I followed her around for in her reading. We wrote a lot in the Rolf magazine together, and so I invited her. No people aren't as familiar with Aline, but she's very bright, and she does some really gets into the stabilization, the history, and the research of the stabilization of the core, and offers some really good ideas for it. But her background, in 2005, Newton became the Physical Intelligence Program Director at MIT, along with the coach of the MIT gymnastics team. She's the author of published articles on aspects of movements, biomechanics, and psychodynamics. So she integrates movement principles with structural manipulation, bringing insights of yoga, tai chi, and Pilates into her Rolfing approach. We have quite a few people whose backgrounds were initially in Rolfing, but have spread into other aspects of body work, much like I have, and that's that's why we brought all these people together, because they have their own little specialty that I think is unique and offers a lot.
And then walking with elastic fascia. So
yeah, those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And Joe Zorn and Kai Hodek, they went into you talk about dedication, these guys. They went into the Zimbabwe or someplace into the brush country in Africa, and they had put together a 3-dimensional camera so that they could watch the people who walk with 15 kilograms of weight on their head, that never have neck pain, never have back pain. The natives that transport, that's how they still transport all their goods, and watched this 3-dimensional camera. What it's supposed to have done is to film all the aspects of the body, and it turns out that through customs they thought it was a weapon they were carrying through, and so they banged it around and damaged it, so it turned out to be a 2-dimensional camera. But it's still very interesting, the photos that are in here of how their pelvis works. It's not exactly what we thought it is. So their explanation of the walking cycle and how these people move, and how we probably should move our bodies to conserve energy, because that's really what our bodies are designed to do, is conserve energy, are unique. I think they're very futuristic, and I think that we're going to find in a couple of years that this is that they're right on, they're dead on with us. Some of the research and the photos of these people in Uganda, wherever it is, was they're very impressive.
And then with active isolated stretching with Aaron.
Oh yeah, Aaron Matt has actually been in every one. I just realized that the other day. I've had Aaron we met. I did a tutorial with him 15, 20 years ago and went to Sarasota and wanted to learn some of his isolated stretching things. So worked in his clinic for a couple of years and then couple of weeks, and then assisted him in some workshops. But he's legendary, so he has his son Lance in there. I wanted a self-help chapter. I wanted where therapists could help themselves with their the rope stretching that Erin does with her hands, like the lady was talking about, putting the ice on their hands, stretching all of that stuff out. So he goes through the entire body. He's got a really nice chapter that he wrote about this, and then a lot of real practical applications with probably 50 photos, I'd say, of different things that you can go use or give to your clients as home retraining exercises. So one thing I really tried to do in this book is to emphasize the need for home retraining exercises. We sometimes just tear off the sheet and give them the sheet and say, do this. But does that really work for everybody? Does that really match the problems that these people are coming in with? The answer is no. Sometimes it's good. Some of these things, the bird dog, and some of the bug and some dead bug, and some of these things are very, very helpful and can be pretty much translated across the clam, and all these things can be translated across a bunch of different conditions or problems that people come in with. But sometimes they can't. You really have to be more specific with your home retraining exercises. And so that's kind of what we try to present here. Some stretching, some things where the tissues need a restoration of extensibility, and then some of the Craig Levinson type things that he presents, and also Paul Kelly and Nick Chris present, that brings in a little bit of the yoga and also brings in the functional training. If you're in a gym, what kinds of free movement that you want to use in the gym to stabilize the low back, to create mobility in the thoracic cage, to create ankle mobility, to create stability in the knees, to create mobility in the hips. That mobility, stability thing that Michael Boyle's first, I think he was one of the first to come up with that, is very, very intriguing, and I think the manual therapy community needs to understand that, because we're screwing a lot of people up right now, trying to create too much mobility and an unstable back, and protective muscle guarding is usually there for a reason. You injure the back and you've got protective muscle guarding. When they see you, all you feel is a big wad of hypertrophy tissue, and what do? You get an elbow in there and dig it out. And typically that muscle spasm is there for a reason. The brain says, I don't like what's going on there. I'm not exactly sure. My neural matrix, I'm looking at the whole body. My picture, the form that I have of the body, it's not hardwired like we once thought, but the image that I have of the body says that there's something going on down there I don't like. I can't specify what it is, but I don't like it, so I'm going to lock it up until I figure it out. And so that guarding is there, and sometimes when you remove that guarding, you make the back less stable. And the less stability in the back is going to create a lot more pain. And once again, you keep having more and more clients. So it's not a bad thing, because you make more money because people keep coming back because you never get them fixed. So you create your own clients, as one old chiropractor used to say to me. He says, "Yeah, I just keep popping that neck every time they come in." I go, "Do you do that every time? You do that high velocity thrust through that neck every time?" He says, "Yeah, I just keep doing that." He says, "They'll be with me for the rest of my life." He says, "After you go through chiropractic school, almost everybody that goes through chiropractic school, after we practice on each other, we got hypermobile necks, and we're going to need therapy for the rest of our lives."
Oh.
But that was kind of it's said and joking, but it was really not. And of course, I love chiropractic technique myself, and I love high velocity thrust too. But done if it's very, very specific, and you isolate down to the dysfunctional segment, and that's where Craig Levinson, the chiropractor from the LA Sports Science Center up there, that he was one of the first chiropractors, if not the first chiropractor, to realize, hey guys, let's look at this stability mobility issue. Are we creating instability? Are we creating patience for the rest of our lives? And I really appreciate that. When I look back in 1998, I think his first book, Rehabilitation of the Spine, 1998, when it came out, it blew my socks off. And those videos that he had, Lippincott, Williams, and Wilkins, I don't know why they never really made it to a major market, because were fabulous. And now, of course, he's got them in. He's had his newest version of his rehabilitation of the spine, and he's got a DVD in there. And of course, Leon Chateau, all of his stuff. By the way, I want to plug Leon Chateau's new book. Got to check out Leon Chateau's new pelvic pain book, man. That thing is something else. It is really, there's a lot of thought that has gone into that. He gets into all the respiratory system, how the diaphragm, how the pelvic diaphragm and the respiratory diaphragm are supposed to work together, and how they translate to compensation and injuries and dysfunction and just basically ill health throughout the entire body. And of course, we all know with, I don't know how many, 72 books in print or something that Leon has. Everything he has is wonderful, and so he takes complex stuff and is able to make it very, very readable, very much like Tom Myers.
And your book, do you think it'd be good for like the core massage program, or do you think it's more advanced than the average massage program, or?
Yeah, it's more advanced than the average massage program. Not that an average massage therapist wouldn't enjoy the book, because they would. When I used to go to those osteopathic courses, I would always sit in the back, and I would always kind of half hide my face, because there would be 48 people in class there at East Lansing, and they were all already doctors, DOs, and a few PTs thrown in, and I really didn't understand those concepts, those biomechanics concepts at all. Fred Mitchell Sr. and all those people at Muscle Energy stuff. But you know what? I didn't care if I didn't understand. I just sat there and go, this is fabulous. I want to know this someday. I know I don't know it now, but I don't care. 99% of it was going over my head like this, but I go, it's somewhere where I want to be. I want to go there. And that's what this book's about. It's a place that you can go to. It's not a place that you may not be now, but it's a place to look forward to going to. And that's what bodywork's all about, in my opinion, or any industry, in music, it's the same thing. You have your idols in music when you're, when I was a teenager and started playing music in junior and high school, man. I mean, I had people that we copied because they were inspirational to us, and and you just keep going, and finally you go, okay, I think I can do something original now. I think I can do something and get away from this, and sure enough, everybody does something original, and that's how the bodywork business and every other business grows and thrives. So yeah, I think it's an important book, but I don't think it's a book that would be a standard textbook in a basic curriculum, unless you were maybe in one of the long-term curriculums up in Canada. They have a wonderful, of course, system up there.
And then, are you autographing some books then too, or?
Yeah, we did. I autographed a lot of books. And then I just got a thing that was very embarrassing on Facebook the other day. The books, as you can see here, the books have this. This is to my mom. That's why it's autographed. I haven't given it to her yet. I'm going to give it to her tomorrow. My dear mom. She's got trigeminal neuralgia. Those of you who know what that is, it's horrifying. But anyway, so it's got these pages like this that you open up to first. These pages. So when I'm signing these books, they got them all stacked up there, and they're all stacked up, and I'm just signing one after another and all this stuff. Well, it turns out that some of them were stacked up like this, and so I was opening to the back of the book, upside down back. So one of my dear friends, I think it was Barbara McNair or somebody on Facebook, says, I got my book. It's signed on the back page, upside down. So instead of being on the front here, I signed back here. And so I don't know how many people are going to complain about that. I just said, think about it as an original, maybe as if the signature's worth anything. Now, in my workshops, I always give the example of yeah, easy for me to say, Muhammad Ali. I happened to sit at Muhammad Ali was my idol, always been my idol. His body, I loved the way his body moved, and the psychology of how he boxed. And I was sitting in a reggae club waiting on my friend who was playing drums there to start, and we were in the round, and all of a sudden up comes these three big, huge black guys, gorgeous in suits, all decked out, coming up, and I don't pay much attention. I finally glance over there and I go, my God, it's Muhammad Ali. I can't believe it, And so I'm going, just don't come on my road. Don't come on my road. Sure enough, 2 bodyguards let him in. He comes and sits right down next to me. And, and I'm like this. I'm not worthy, and I'm looking. I want to see his hands, so I'm looking at his hands. He was in his early stages of Parkinson's, and so he was not talking at all, no words. But everybody was starting to give him stuff to sign and everything, and I'm still like this, watching everything. And then pretty soon he just turns over and he goes, "You're making me nervous. You want me to sign something?" So we signed Muhammad Ali, but then I found that if it had been Cassius Clay, it would have been over $100,000. So I'm saying I'm signing these books, and I'll sign them Cassius Clay if you want, if that helps.
And Woody asked, did your hand recover yet?
My head?
Your hand?
From signing books? A lot of paraffin.
Yeah.
Oh, no, my wife gave me some massage on some forearm massage and some stuff like that, and it felt a lot better. But yeah, I have horrible handwriting anyway, and so it's just like it's taken a little while to get over, but it's an honor for me. I mean, it's an honor for me to somebody even want my signature. I was always just amazed by that when I first put out my first book. They'd ask for a signature. I would get so embarrassed, just going, why would you do that? But I always want that too. Even the first time Philip Greenman signed my book, I was just in awe. I mean, I just love people that are doing something to say, I know these people. They're part of, kind of part of what I'm doing, and I'm just happy to have a little piece of them with me. I got a lot of my books here signed, so I guess I am an autograph hound, actually, a groupie.
And Donna says she's going to order one today, and she really would love your signature. So.
have Donna write that on when she orders it. Write that on the bottom under notes on my website on the order form, and if she forgets, she can email my office manager. Her email address is on there too. Or call her at 800-709-5054, and we'll probably be able to arrange that.
And then Tim in the chat asked, is there benefit of racial engaging in high velocity ballistic bouncing movements is unjustified for many clients, would you say, or not?
Okay, well, that's a very good question, Justin, or whoever asked that. Because there's a difference in high velocity thrust. There shouldn't be a lot of movement. High velocity is what it stands for is high amplitude, meaning very, very quick, very, very quick. High velocity, very, very quick. Low amplitude, meaning over a very short range. So it's just a tiny range. So anytime you're getting a chiropractic adjustment and they've got you in a miracle roll, you're on your side and that leg's hanging over, and they're not isolating down from above to the dysfunctional segment and isolating from below, so that they've got that joint just locked, so that the one that is that's needing to be released gets the click, the small cavitation, the little cavitation. If it's going plop, if you're hearing that kind of rumbling like that, then they're probably not isolating down to dysfunctional segments. So high velocity thrust should never really be like that. If they've got you prone and they're doing the old Texas twister, where they're on at bra line pushing straight down, and you hear all those pops, that is not your vertebrae that's popping. Those are your rib heads. That's a costovertebral and costotransverse joints that are popping. So you got ribs popping and vertebrae that aren't closing that are popping. So you don't want all that going on. You loosen up those ribs, then you start loosening up the costal cartilage in the front, and then what happens? Get a little costochondritis, CC syndrome, and then people start thinking they're having heart attacks. But back to that springing thing, one of the guys in the book, Jerry Hesh, I call him the Spring King. He's got the Hesh method of he's doing describes backward sacral torsions, which are the most overlooked and the least appreciated and the least understood of all low back pain and sciatic. They can mimic sciatic pain, things that go on in our industry. And of course, I learned techniques in osteopathy for that. But he springs them. He springs, but you don't just spring. You're not bouncing on something like Justin's referring to. You're not bouncing on that, which is what I learned originally in osteopathic school. You have to take up the slack first. So you get in the position on the SI joint. You take up 30 pounds of pressure, and then you hold that, and then you bounce with that same pressure. You've taken up the slack in the joint and add an additional 20 pounds to see what the joint's doing. And you really pay attention as you're coming off. As you're coming off, you want to see how much recoil that joint has, because coming off can help put that thing back in. And that's what Jerry Hesch is so brilliantly written on. He's got it actually. He writes all this theory on how you do it in the book, and then he gives you a 2-minute way to put them in a child's pose, a yoga child's pose, and assess them in the child's pose. Do your springing technique and get rid of a backward sacral torsion that's been plaguing somebody for years. They often will not go away. They will not go away without the correct treatment. And I find so many people come in that have clean MRIs, but they're following sometimes a dermatome, an L5S1 dermatome, and they're still in a great deal of pain, and no one knows what's going on, but the doctor says, I'll do exploratory surgery anyway, which is one of the worst things that you can have them say, and it'll be a backward sacral torsion. So anyway, that springing thing, that was a very good question, because there's a lot of difference in springing a joint, isolating down a dysfunctional segment and doing a high velocity, low amplitude thrust through that joint, or doing muscle energy, or whatever you want to do. But the most important thing is to remember that a lot of those areas need to be stabilized.
And then Tim, he said he messed up a little bit, but he meant the question related to fascial fitness.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any difference with fascial fitness too with that?
With fascial fitness and high velocity thrust?
Yeah.
Springing.
Yeah.
The fascial fitness, again, the fascial fitness goes into a whole systems approach. And I don't want to say that high velocity thrust does not go into a systems approach, but it's more specific. You do your structural analysis with that. You do your forward bending to see what facet joints aren't opening in the lumbar spine or the thoracic spine. You put them in the Sphinx position on their prone with the Sphinx position, and you check to see if if you can see what joints aren't closing when you put them in the extension position. You do your forward bending, which is not a very, very reliable biomechanical test. The osteopaths have a 10-step structural diagnosis that they put you through, assessment that they put you through. And it includes watching the gait cycle, which we all need to do that, and then do the one-legged stork test and forward bending. And when you put all the tests together, it's a fairly good biomechanical picture. You get a pretty good biomechanical picture of what's going on with the person. So in that regard, it's kind of looking at the whole system. And I know Philip Greenman in his book encourages to look at the whole system, but a lot of high velocity is more specialized, whereas fascial fitness is looking at the long lever torsions or restrictions that can be coming from a far distant place. Ida Rolf was the first to give the diagram of the sweater that's pulling, with the sweater snag that affects the entire sweater through that fascial matrix. And so the pain coming from one area may be caused by something, for instance, plantar fasciitis is very, very commonly, of course we know this, a perfect easy example of that is gastroc soleus. Gastroc soleus, and then you got the tibialis posterior with a membrane between it. Tibialis posterior likes to stick to soleus, likes to stick to gastroc, and then what happens is you get plantar fasciitis, or you get a Achilles tendon tear. So what do? You go in and work on the spot? No. You start going up and down the chain and finding out why you have, these fitness. Do a straight leg raise. Do some of Butler's nerve mobilization type of stuff, and seeing where that pain's coming from, making sure that it's not a neural problem, because that is a very hot topic right now too, and that is all of the neural work, the neural mobilization mobilization stuff. Whitney Lowe does a lot of that. Of course, David Butler, I saw him. He came through Michigan State and taught us for a day way back when he was still wearing red pants in those videos. And a very entertaining guy. That Noe group over there, those guys are great, and I love their books. But yeah, fascial fitness is something that applies to everybody who does body work. But also, I like the specific stuff, and I still like the old orthopedic structural test, and I know it's being beaten up in the literature, but so is everything else in the literature being beaten up. But I still do them. I do all of those tests anyway, particularly if I'm not getting it right away. If I'm not getting somebody right away, I'd say, okay, I got to throw that out and go start assessing in a different way, you know.
And Tim Doobie, he said he's fulfilling his promise to ask harder questions. So
He's always trying to ask harder questions. He's from here in Oklahoma City. He's a good friend from here in Oklahoma City. So what's he having to say today?
Well, he was mentioning about the thrust and everything else, the ballistic stuff, and it was Tim. Yep.
Talking about the ballistic stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like something he'd ask.
Yeah. And then Donna says, is there any prerequisites you would recommend before attending your class in San Diego?
No. That's one thing that's real that is different, really, because that, you know, and he used to say absolutely yes. We want a more advanced group. We want somebody that's we want people that have taken one of my home study courses and or have read the books, stuff like that. But you know what? Just like I said with that thing in Michigan State, you know, you're going to get more than what you want out of the workshop. You're going to get, if nothing else, you're going to be able to use your body twice as good as you were when you came in. Your touch will be much better. You'll learn to use what tools, when to move up to a bigger tool rather than tearing up your hands. Well, when to use a knuckle, when to use a fist, when to use an elbow, when to use assisted stretching. You know, stuff like that, and you'll get something out of it. The big thing, mistake people make is trying to get too much out of a workshop. You know, it's 8 hours. You know, what do you want? You know, I mean, we're gonna give them more than they want, but we don't want to overwhelm people. We just want to get them in there and give them stuff that they can take back and use on Monday morning every time, every workshop. That's what we thrive for, is just to go in and make them use their bodies better, make them try to get them to feel the restrictive barriers better. But we're going to be also introducing a lot of, you know, that Fascial Congress in Vancouver. I've got a booth there, and I want you guys to all come and say hi and let me sign a book there for you. That's in March the 27th. 28th and 29th, 28th, 29th. It's 28th, 29th, and 30th of March. And then Tom Myers and oh God, who all is teaching there? I'm enrolled in one of those workshops. I think I'm going to go over to Tom's. The Stecco. The Stecco people are on. Fascial Stecco people are on Saturday. Those are the post workshops. But anyway, we're going to bring all that new research from that Fascial Congress into San Diego, which is only 3 weeks later. So that's going to be real exciting. We'll have a lot of new stuff, new theory to talk about. Of course, most of it will be theory, but that'll be good.
Yeah. And are you going to be making? Are you going to be working on a new book at all in the near future? Or? I knew that would get you.
No! I have a volume 3 of my shoulder, arm, and hand DVDs. I've had them out for a long time, and then I went out. You know, I really didn't want to do anything on shoulder, arm, and hand because everybody's already done shoulder, arm, and hand, thoracic outlet syndrome, all that stuff. So I did the DVDs because I wanted to show the joint mobilization stuff with it. So I start off in the extremities. I always like to mobilize the joints first, take out any kind of protective guarding that might be there from the joints. Get the mechanoreceptors, calm down the joints before I do any of the soft tissue work. So in the extremities, that's how I go about it. Myoskeletal, I always do the mobilization before I do the tissue work. And so that's what I did in Volume 3, 2 DVD set Volume 3. But I never wrote a book for it. I did write a bunch of newsletters in preparation for putting that all together in a book. But you know, Whitney and all those people have done so much of that, and Wazlowski and Ben Benjamin and all those guys on the extremities that you know. First of all, it doesn't interest me as much as the spine. It's not as interesting to me, but it is. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it more from a joint mobilization point of view. So I am going to do that book, but it probably is going to be something very, very simple, a manual or something like that to go with that DVDs to make it into a home study course. Eventually, I'm going to have 4 home study courses. Probably by the end of this next year, 4 home study courses, and then people will have taken all 4 home study courses. They can come to a Costa Rica retreat at some point and be tested, and then they can become a master musculoskeletal therapist. At that point, they'll have over 100 hours of training, and we will award them that master musculoskeletal therapist, and they can, of course, be on our website listed as such. And so that's where we're going with that. And after that's over, who knows? I want to do a one video sometime of just nothing but techniques. I know people are really into this. There are a lot of videos on assessments only, but I wanted to do techniques because techniques are an invitation. I love this. This is from Robert Calvert. He wrote this, the guy who founded Massage Magazine, who wrote the foreword for my last textbook that came out originally in 2005. He said, technique is nothing but an invitation to touch. And you get to thinking about it. That's all really technique is. Everybody puts technique down. I love technique. What's wrong with technique? Technique is an invitation to learn to touch. If you didn't have technique, how are you going to learn to use your body weight? That's the point. Technique is an invitation to learn to touch, and touch is what keeps us alive. And the animals touch each other, nurture each other, and that's there's something about touch that no study, no triple or double blind study is ever going to find out what it does. It's just not going to happen. But it's a powerful thing, and we all know it. We've been doing it throughout the ages, and it's not going to go away. Manual therapy is not going to go away. A lot of people say, oh, manual therapy is on the decline. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Things get popular just like country music gets popular when pop music gets into a lull, and vice versa. Stuff like that just goes. Functional movement's been around forever. Look back in the old days, in the 30s and 40s, there was a lot of incredible functional movement going on back there. Now it's got another renaissance. It's coming up. The cognitive brain stuff with all the functional MRI and all that stuff. We've got a bunch of wonderful knowledge about the brain and how it works. So it's in a renaissance too. That will all be incorporated, and it will just keep building and building and building on the forefathers, the work that our forefathers have done, and I'm just happy to be in this industry and be a part of it.
And then the best way to get a hold of your book would just be erikdalton.com then, right?
Yeah, erikdalton.com is the best place to get on the website, and then just click on, you can click on home studies, and then right under the home study bar it'll say textbook. Say textbook, and just click on the textbook. And then don't forget them, Also, DaltonDynamicBody.com, DaltonDynamicBody.com, and that has the information on it where you can get the 15% off everything I have, the Dalton Complete Library with my posters, 13 DVDs, 3 books, a couple of home study ethics courses, and 48 Cs, and all kinds of crap on there. And it's a tax deduction. Write it off before the end of the year. That's the main thing. Get everything written off before the end of the year. By the way, you guys got to also remember that you can write off any of your equipment 100% before the end of the year. That's going away, so if you need a new therapy table, better buy it before the end of the year. But buy my stuff first.
Okay. So registration is now open for American Massage Conference, so they can make sure they get into your class because that's going to fill up like instant. So.
Good. I'm glad that's open. That'll be good. I'll go take a look at that that site. I am looking forward to that. It really just makes me happy that that's the only thing I'm going to be doing. It's just I can kind of focus on that. I'm going to Costa Rica to the house and pick up Tom Myers and his wife Kwan, and he's teaching over there with Ben Benjamin on the 11th, I think, the 11th of February. So they're going to come over to our house and stay with my wife Terry and I for a few days after the Costa Rica event. And then the next month is Vancouver Fascial Congress, and of course Tom will be teaching there, and Schleip and all those guys will be there. A lot of the people, half the authors in the book, I think, are going to be at that Fascial Congress. And in San Diego on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd is the big American Massage Conference with all those great people in attendance. So I hope to see you all at some of those events.
Okay.
Yeah, bring your book. Let me sign it there at the Fascial Congress.
And otherwise, you'll have tons there too, as people can purchase them, right?
We'll have quite a few if we can sneak them through Canadian Customs.
Yep.
That's not as easy as it seems.
No, I've heard horror stories. So.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay, it's been a pleasure, Erik. Thank you very much for being on.
Thanks for having this special holiday presentation. I know you usually do it on Wednesday nights live at 9 o'clock, and I just wanted to thank you for being such a just screaming onto the scene and kind of just taking over this whole thing. I've got to get with you someday and figure out how you did that.
Yep.
Is it mafia? You have mafia ties? What?
Yeah, Minnesota ties. Yeah.
Minnesota ties. Well, anyway, we really appreciate you, and I definitely appreciate you because you're always fun. And you're a great interviewer, and you makes it easy on us. And so, thanks for your contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. So go to erikdalton.com and get all the information and get the new book. And I've been reading a chapter a day, so it's going to take me about a month. It looks like so.
134 pages or something. It's a big book.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Erik.
Thank you too.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.